She'll never forget this hug. How to hug like a stoic man. Stoic Bloom. What if I told you that a 3-second hug could reveal everything she feels, but 95% of men never notice it? It's not about your arms, your charm, or even your cologne. It's about what your nervous system says when words fall silent. If you want her to melt, not just smile, then you'll need more than muscle. You'll need stillness. Welcome to the Stoic way of holding a woman like she's a storm and you're the anchor. Part 1. The Missed Moment. There's a sacred instant, barely 3 seconds long, where the energy between two people either opens the gate to intimacy or closes it forever. Her breath slows, her body subtly leans in, her eyes soften. But most men, caught in the blur of action and performance, miss it entirely. They think it's just a hug. Arms around her, squeeze, release, done. But they never enter. They never really arrive in the space between their chest and hers. They don't feel. They don't transmit. They assume hugging is contact, but it's actually communication. And what gets said in that silent exchange isn't spoken in words. It's whispered in presence. When your chest meets hers, it's not a biological bump. It's a message straight into her nervous system. Your job isn't to impress. Your job is to arrive. And here's the secret. She notices. Her body reads your energy like Braille. It knows whether you're truly there or already gone. If you're hugging her like a chore, like a countdown to the next move, her body knows. She might not flinch, she might even smile, but she won't melt. And the reason she doesn't melt isn't because you didn't touch her, it's because you didn't hold her. Because a hug, when done right, isn't about proximity, it's about grounding. A woman's body doesn't feel safe just because you're close. It feels safe when your energy is still. When your center says, I'm not here to take, I'm here to hold. Now, most men aren't careless. They're just untrained. Nobody ever guided them on how to hold space, how to turn a moment of contact into a sanctuary of calm. So they hug like they live, rushed, distracted, outcome-focused. But Stoicism teaches us presence. It teaches us that the power of a man is not in how tight he grips, but in how deeply he roots. Just like Marcus Aurelius stood firm in storms of politics and war, you too must become immovable in moments of intimacy, especially in the quiet ones. And if you learn to hug like that, you'll notice something strange. She breathes deeper, her weight shifts subtly, her defenses flicker. She lets go, not just of your arms, but of herself. She finally rests. And in that moment, you've done something no game, no gift, no line ever could. You've made her feel safe in surrender. If that hit you somewhere deeper than logic, then don't keep this secret to yourself. Share this video with a brother who still hugs like he's burping a baby. Drop a like if you've ever hugged someone but never held them. And hey, subscribe to Stoic Bloom, where we guide you not to impress women, but to embody the man they can rest into. Stoic Bloom. Stillness is the loudest language she'll ever trust. Part 2. A silent conversation. Most men believe a hug is a gesture, a quick, polite act of affection. But to a woman, especially one who is in tune with her body, a hug is never just physical. It's a silent conversation. A deep, instinctual dialogue taking place not between two people, but between two nervous systems. When your chest presses against hers and the world seems to hush for a split second, something profound happens. Her body isn't just being touched, it's being spoken to in a language more ancient than words. Energy. And that energy doesn't lie. You can say all the right things, smile all you want, but if your body is broadcasting uncertainty, need, or restlessness, her body picks it up like static on a radio dial. That's why Stoics emphasized inner moral harmony. Epictetus taught that we must first train our inner world before expecting to affect the outer one. This applies directly to your presence. Your embrace must come from a place of settled certainty, not craving, not ambition, not tension. A man rooted in his essence doesn't hug to achieve, he hugs to hold. And this is where most men go astray. They mistake proximity for presence. They think touching her body is enough to make her feel seen. But presence isn't measured in inches, it's measured in stillness. A man who is truly present isn't trying to get anything from the moment. He's not holding her to gain access, to seek permission, or to subtly seduce. He's holding her because he already has something, a steady inner core. Presence says, "You are safe. You don't need to perform. You can rest." Pressure, on the other hand, says, "Please feel me. Please respond. Please give me something back." One soothes, the other agitates. One invites, the other demands. A Stoic hug carries with it a quiet certainty. It's the same certainty Marcus Aurelius spoke of when he reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." When you hug with that kind of inner gravity, it's not a move, it's a message. One that says, "I'm not going anywhere, not because I need to prove myself, but because I already know who I am." In that stillness, her body begins to trust, not because you whispered the right words, but because your nervous system spoke louder than language ever could. Her subconscious reads your calm, your breath, your relaxed jaw, the way your shoulders settle, not tighten. And in that reading, she decides instinctively, not intellectually, whether or not you are safe. This is the paradox. A woman's body doesn't feel safe because you're physically strong. It feels safe because you are energetically soft and centered, because you're not rushing through the hug like a transaction. You're present like it's a meditation. You're not offering touch, you're offering containment, and that changes everything. Stoic bloom. The quietest embrace often echoes the loudest. Part 3. Stillness over strength. Here's the illusion. Men are taught to believe that women feel safe in their arms because those arms are strong, chiseled, protective. But strength without stillness is like armor with no night inside. It may impress from a distance, but up close it feels hollow. A woman's body doesn't surrender to strength. It surrenders to certainty, not loud, performative confidence, not puffed up bravado, but quiet, embodied stillness. The kind of presence that doesn't tremble when her mood shifts, doesn't flinch when her energy intensifies, doesn't collapse when she gets closer. You see, a woman feels most secure not when you're trying to fix her or shelter her, but when your energy doesn't need her to be anything different. When you hold her, not like a puzzle to solve or a reward to win, but like a storm you're built to weather. Not passive, not rigid, just grounded. This is what separates a boy from a man. The boy seeks comfort in control. He wants to manage her emotions so he can feel powerful. But the man, especially the Stoic man, knows that his power is proven in chaos. That to truly hold a woman, he must first hold himself. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In the context of intimacy, this means her emotions are not your test. They're your mirror. Her tension reflects your tension. Her resistance echoes your restlessness. And her softness only arrives when your calm says, "You are free to fall apart here. I won't." Most men think presence means staring intensely or saying deep things. But presence isn't effortful. It's not performance. Presence is stillness that breathes. It's how your hand rests on her back, how your chest doesn't tighten, how you exhale with her, not around her. When a man hugs from presence, his body becomes a safe container. And here's the beautiful irony. The less he tries to be felt, the more deeply she feels him, because pressure seeks attention, but presence offers refuge. And refuge is what a woman's body longs for in a world that constantly demands her energy, her beauty, her availability. So the next time you wrap your arms around her, ask yourself, are you squeezing to be noticed? Or are you anchoring her chaos with the calm of your breath? If it's the latter, you'll witness a transformation. Not in her words, but in her breath, in the way her shoulders finally fall, in the way her eyes close just for a second longer. That's not arousal, that's trust. And trust is the deepest root of desire. Let's be honest, brother. If you've ever hugged a woman like you're holding a slippery fish or a ticking time bomb, it's time to rethink things. Hit the like button if you're ready to upgrade from awkward squeeze to anchored stillness. Share this with your fellow Stoic in progress and subscribe to Stoic Bloom, where hugs are sacred, stillness is sexy, and desperation is unfollowed. Stoic Bloom. Calm isn't weakness, it's masculine gravity. Part 4, trust versus tension. Trust is not built in words, it's built in stillness. A woman does not trust you because of what you say. She trusts you because of how her body responds when you're silent. When she hugs you, she's not just noticing how your arms feel, she's scanning for depth. Her subconscious is listening for the rhythm of your nervous system. She's asking 1,000 questions in a single moment of touch. Can I rest here? Will he hold all of me or just the parts he likes? Is he still performing or has he arrived? And here's the uncomfortable truth. If you're hugging her with tension in your shoulders, hesitation in your breath, or urgency in your embrace, she knows. Maybe not consciously, but her body knows. Her breath stays shallow. Her spine stiffens. Her hips stay angled just slightly away. She might smile, but she won't soften. That's because softness is not voluntary. It's involuntary. It's a biological response to perceived safety. When your energy is still, her defenses lower, not because you asked her to, but because her body decided you are trustworthy. Think of trust like a river carving through rock. It doesn't rush. It doesn't demand. It doesn't scream for attention. It simply is, persistent and unshakable, just like the Stoic mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." Women have this judgment too, though often wordless. If your energy feels needy, her body doesn't feel free. And if she doesn't feel free, she cannot surrender. This is why most men confuse compliance with connection. They think if she stays close, it means she trusts them. But women are taught to smile when uncomfortable, to nod even when they want to pull away. True connection doesn't come from proximity, it comes from permission. And that permission is granted only when your energy says, "I am here, and I ask for nothing in return." A Stoic man understands that he cannot force trust. He must become trustworthy. And that trustworthiness is demonstrated in the most subtle of ways. The steadiness of his breath, the stillness of his gaze, the way he doesn't rush the moment even when his own desire is rising. Because here's the paradox. The moment she begins to soften is the moment you are most tested. Can you hold her openness without clutching it? Can you honor her surrender without turning it into currency? When she begins to trust you, you are no longer being evaluated for charm or cleverness. You are being weighed for depth. She is no longer asking, "Can he get me?" She's asking, "Can he hold me, all of me?" And if the answer is yes, not just from your lips, but from your center, she exhales, and that exhale is everything. Stoic bloom. Trust isn't given, it's felt in stillness. Part 5, the energetic container. Most men hug a woman the way they were taught. Apply physical pressure, hold for a second or two, release. Simple, safe, polite. But here's the truth no one teaches them. Not all holding is equal. Physical pressure is not the same as energetic presence. One touches her body, the other cradles her soul. A woman doesn't remember the hug that made her feel squeezed. She remembers the hug that made her feel held, not restrained, not gripped, held. And that kind of holding doesn't begin with your arms. It begins with your center. When you offer your presence fully, when your breathing is grounded, your shoulders are relaxed, your heartbeat calm, you become a container, not a wall, not a cage, a riverbank, a structure strong enough to hold the chaos of her current without trying to stop it, fix it, or redirect it. This is the rare masculine energy women crave, but almost never experience. It's not dominant. It's not submissive. It's simply unmoved. Seneca once wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And in intimacy, adversity isn't a battle. It's emotional turbulence. Can you feel her waves without drowning in them? That is your proof. That is your test. And that is your gift. You've hugged women before, but how many have melted in your arms? Not leaned, not smiled, melted. How many have exhaled without thinking? Let their shoulders drop. Let their spine rest against yours like a home she never knew she needed? That isn't seduction. It's containment. Containment is what happens when your nervous system says, "I can hold all of you, not just your curves, but your storm. Not just your joy, but your weight. And I don't need you to be lighter for me to stay grounded." That is the highest expression of masculine presence. It doesn't pull. It doesn't push. It simply stays, anchored, immovable, inviting her chaos without absorbing it. And when a woman feels that, when she finally senses that your calm isn't a performance but a practiced discipline, her body relaxes in ways she didn't even know were tense. If you've ever wondered why she leaned in but never melted, it might not be your cologne, brother. It might be your energy. So go ahead, like this video if you're tired of hugging like a lawn chair in a hurricane. Share it with someone who still thinks firm grip means emotional security. And if you're ready to be the riverbank, not the ripple, subscribe to Stoic Bloom, where presence isn't preached, it's practiced. Stoic Bloom. Don't grip her, ground her. Part 6, the real test. What most men don't realize is this. The most dangerous moment is not when she surrenders, but right after. You held her. You were calm, still, grounded, and she let go. Not of the hug, but of her vigilance. Her nervous system gave you the rarest gift. It stopped defending. And in that softness, she opened. But now everything inside you is exposed. Because now it's no longer about the moment. It's about the man. When a woman feels safe, her body doesn't relax out of politeness. It relaxes as a test, not to sabotage, not to play games, but to see you, to see if the man who held her body can now hold her truth. And this test, it's quiet. It arrives as a shift, a subtle change in her breath, her tone, her posture. Maybe she pulls back slightly, not physically, but emotionally. Maybe she falls silent, or maybe her mood seems to change without warning. Most men panic here. They lean in, they chase, they try to reassure or recapture the warmth. But the truth is, she's not slipping away. She's watching. Watching how you respond when she no longer gives you the sweetness you've grown used to. Watching whether your calm was real or just a tactic. This is where many men fail, because they weren't anchored, they were performing. And now, with no script, they falter. Their energy folds inward. Their gaze shifts from reverence to possession. and she feels it deep in her bones. She feels the change. You're no longer holding her as a mirror. You're holding her as a reward. Your presence collapses into hunger, and that hunger whispers a truth she cannot unfeel. He wasn't here for me. He was here for what I gave him. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. And in love, insanity is this: reacting to a woman's openness with entitlement, thinking that softness now gives you permission to shift who you are. But a stoic man doesn't shift when she changes. He deepens. When her warmth cools, he doesn't panic. He remains. When her gaze turns inward, he doesn't interrupt. He breathes. When her fire dims to a flicker, he doesn't stoke it with fear. He surrounds it with presence. Because he understands, the test isn't a trick, it's a reflection. She is asking, can you love me even when I am not easy? Can you stay calm when I am not soft? Can you hold your shape when I give you nothing to hold on to? If your answer is yes, not in theory, but in your breath, your gaze, your stillness, then you've passed the only test that matters. Stoic bloom. Stillness is not for when it's easy, it's for when she pulls away. Part 7, when her mood changes. You passed the first test, she softened, but now comes the second and far more subtle one. What do you do when she shifts? Because she will. Always. Not because she's playing games, but because that's how feminine energy works. It flows, it changes, it breathes in waves. And every wave is asking you the same question in a different form. Can you hold me now? Now that I'm silent, now that I'm moody, now that I've gone from open warmth to cold stillness without warning. Most men interpret this shift as a rejection. They take her change personally. They panic. They react. They try to fix, to chase, to pull her back into warmth, because her warmth validated them. But the man who depends on her emotional state to remain steady is not a man. He's a mirror. And when she senses that, she retracts fast. A stoic man, however, does not personalize her storm. He welcomes it like weather. He does not shrink from the rain. He simply becomes the roof. Her mood is not a threat. It is an invitation to deepen, to stay, to not flinch. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." In this moment, the wise man listens, not to her words, but to her energy. He doesn't speak to change her state. He breathes to steady his own, because he understands women don't test to punish. They test to feel the edges of your container, not to destroy you, but to find out if you're real. And when you prove you are by not reacting, not retreating, not asking her to make you feel safe, she relaxes again. Not because you forced it, but because your steadiness gave her permission to feel without managing your reaction. This is what emotional containment looks like. Not suppression, not avoidance, but presence that does not depend on conditions. And that kind of presence, it's rare and it's unforgettable. If you've ever been thrown off by her random mood swings, welcome to the dojo. Hit the like button if you're ready to retire from emotional dodgeball. Share this with a brother who treats every silence like a red alert. And subscribe to Stoic Bloom, where we don't fix her moods, we anchor through them. Stoic Bloom, her mood is the storm, your stillness is the shore. Part 8, the nervous system truth. Words can lie, charm can deceive, but a man's nervous system, his true center, never fakes. In the stillness after the hug, when nothing is happening and all the masks have dropped, that's when the truth surfaces. She's no longer listening to what you say. She's feeling what you radiate. Not your posture, not your smile, not your clever one-liners, but your baseline, the vibration beneath the words. And here's what most men forget. The feminine body is wired to feel, not logic, not narrative, resonance. So if your calm is a performance, if your breath is tight with unspoken need, if your stillness is actually restraint wrapped in control, she knows. Not with her mind, with her body, with her bones. And when she senses that your energy is more about getting than giving, she begins to pull away. Not rudely, not dramatically, just instinctively, because her nervous system tells her what her mind hasn't yet formed into words. I don't feel safe here anymore. That's why the rarest kind of masculine energy is not impressive. It's anchored. It doesn't increase when she softens. It deepens. It doesn't rush when things get quiet. It listens. It doesn't need to react. It recognizes. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In relationships, this applies as the best strength is to be unlike the chaos you're holding. When her energy trembles, you don't tremble with it. You become the unmovable point. Because true presence doesn't depend on external cues. It doesn't rise and fall with her smile or her silence. It doesn't get louder when she goes quiet. It gets clearer. That's the signal she's listening for. Not your words, but your signal. The one your body transmits without permission. And if that signal says, "I am here," regardless of how you shift, she trusts it. She leans into it. She may not even know why, but her body says yes, not to you, but to the energy you've chosen to embody. And if you can stay in that stillness, when the moment is no longer romantic, when the air is thick with unspoken emotions, when nothing is happening, that's when everything happens. Because that's the moment she sees who you truly are. Stoic bloom, you're not what you say. You're what her body feels in your silence. Part 9, when she feels home. There's a moment rare and sacred when a woman stops thinking and simply rests, not just in your arms, but in your presence. In that moment, she isn't trying to impress. She isn't scanning your tone or deciphering your silence. She just is. And that shift, that surrender, that's what most men chase without ever understanding. Because it isn't caused by charm. It isn't triggered by technique. It's the byproduct of deep energetic safety. She doesn't rest in your muscles. She rests in your masculinity. Not the noisy kind, not the alpha performance, but the kind that says, you don't have to be anything else right now. You can fall apart here and I'll stay whole. That's when she feels home. Not because of how you hold her body, but because of how you hold space. Not because you made her feel desired, but because you made her feel undisturbed. Like nothing she brings, tears, laughter, silence, or storm will knock you off center. That's what Stoicism trains into the man. Inner stillness so strong it becomes a sanctuary for others. Just as Marcus Aurelius endured the weight of empire without collapsing, so too must you learn to hold emotional weight without retreat or reaction. And when you do, she stops performing. Her mask drops. Her resistance dissolves. She doesn't just lean into your arms, she melts into your frame. And that's the difference. A boy wants to be close to her body. A man becomes the place her soul remembers. This is what feminine energy craves but rarely finds. A space where she doesn't have to be strong, where she can stop carrying the world, where she can finally let go. But make no mistake, this surrender is not submission. It's sacred trust. It's her saying that you're the first one who didn't ask me to give more. You're the first one who held me without needing anything back. And in that space, her femininity awakens, not the performative kind, but the deep, radiant, intuitive current that only flows when she feels safe enough to unravel. This isn't romance, it's reverence. You didn't seduce her into this. You stood still enough for her to arrive in it. If this stirred something inside you, something that whispered, I want to be that man, then stop scrolling and start anchoring. Like this video if you've ever mistaken closeness for connection. Share it with someone who needs to hear that the real flex is stillness. And subscribe to Stoic Bloom, where we don't chase desire. We create the kind of presence it runs to. Stoic Bloom, be the place her soul exhales. Part 10, Reverence over Reward. To truly hold a woman is to move from the mindset of access to the mindset of reverence. Most men approach women like seekers at the gates of a temple, hoping to gain entry through charm, performance, or compliance. But feminine energy does not open to desire that wants. It opens to presence that respects. And that respect doesn't come from pedestalizing her or worshiping her image. It comes from understanding at a visceral level that what you're holding is not yours. It's not a prize. It's not a conquest. It's an entire world, one you were never meant to own, only to witness with unwavering presence. That's reverence. It is the masculine recognition that the depth you feel in her is not for you to manage, but to mirror. That the chaos she carries is not a mess to fix, but a force to contain without control. Seneca taught that we should treat what we possess as if it were borrowed. And in intimacy, nothing is ever truly possessed. Not her attention, not her affection, not even her surrender. Everything she offers is voluntary, and that makes it sacred. So when you hold her like you'd hold a mirror, not to admire your own reflection, but to honor what it reveals. Hold her like silence, full of weight and meaning. Hold her like stillness, steady, not stiff. Hold her like a moment you do not want it to change, because you already know there is nothing to add. There is only something to feel. And when you do, something inside her recognizes it. Not in her mind, but in her body. She doesn't think, he's different. She feels, I'm safe. And in a world of hungry hands and restless hearts, that safety is a home she never knew she was searching for. So hug her, not as a man who wants her. Hug her as a man who already has himself, not for reward, but from reverence. Not because she's perfect, but because you are present. Stoic Bloom, don't pursue her, honor her. That's when she stays. Final reflection. What you've just experienced is not a lesson in physical affection. It is an initiation into a deeper masculinity, one that isn't measured by dominance, desire, or performance, but by presence, the ability to stay calm when she is storming, the strength to stay soft when she's guarded, the courage to offer nothing but yourself and trust that it is enough. This video wasn't about learning how to hug a woman. It was about learning how to hold the world without letting it shake your center. That is Stoicism in practice. That is what Marcus Aurelius lived, what Epictetus taught, what Seneca embodied. Not detachment from emotion, but discipline within it. Not absence of care, but the refusal to be ruled by outcome. If something in this journey awakened a recognition within you, not just as a man, but as a human being committed to becoming a safer presence in a chaotic world, then I invite you to take this further. Subscribe to Stoic Bloom and become part of a brotherhood where masculinity is not a performance, but a practice. Leave a comment, share what struck you most, or what you're still wrestling with. Like this video if it helped you stand still where others collapse. And share it with someone you care about. Someone who needs this message now more than ever. Because the world doesn't need more men who chase. It needs more men who can hold. Stoic Bloom, hold the moment or the moment will hold you.